The subject we're going to talk about tonight is the non-traditional security issue, and we will take the international drug crime as a study case. So, before we start today's class, I would like to ask you, what is drug? Poison. No, drug is different with the poison. Poison makes us die, but drug can make us happy. Yeah, first addictive, and make users feel comfortable and happy, relaxed, things like that. So, what kind of drug you guys heard before? Amphetamine, yeah, and MDMA, yeah. Anyone? No. Patient. Yeah, heroin. Yeah. And the other one is very, very famous. Marijuana. Some people say it's more. In Taiwan, still drugs. Yeah. And cocaine. How do you say that in Chinese? 古柯碱. Yeah. Okay. So. First, let's talk about what is non-traditional security issue. So we should first clarify the idea of security. In the field of international relations study, there are two different definitions of security. First, it says security is an objective reality, which means country is in a state that there is no objective possibility to be attacked or invaded. And the other one is security is a subjective identification. That means country belief itself is in a state that there is no any threats can jeopardize its survival and prosperity. So can you see the difference between these two definitions? Objective reality and subjective identification. And the best situation is these two kind of states exist at the same time. So country is in an objective security state, and also in belief this situation exists. But sometimes these two situations will inconsist. For example, some countries is actually in a state that objectively safe, but it feels itself is not very insecure. Any case of that? For example, the United States is a very powerful country, and you can imagine any country can attack the United States directly. But if you see the policy documents that are released by Washington, you can see it's always worried about some countries rise up and will defeat the United States someday. So it's a country objective safe, but feel very insecure. And the other situation, there are some countries that are facing some objective threats, but itself believe it is safe. Just like, I mean Taiwan. There is thousands of missiles just in front of us in China, right? But most of the people and students in Taiwan, they are more care about what I'm going to eat tonight. So that's totally different situation. And we can also categorize the security idea of the international relations into two different types. The first type is traditional security. That's something people usually refer as a high politics issue, such as war, military conflict, or arms race and nuclear proliferation. When I mention these things, usually people will say, oh yes, this is directly related with the national security. Very obvious. And the other thing is non-traditional security. That's something emerging, and people usually refer it as a low politics affairs. Things like climate changes, epidemic disease, international crime, and cyber attack. And in the past few decades, you can see most of the research focus in the field of international relations studies is on the traditional security issues. But in recent years, some scholars and experts, they already realize that the non-traditional security issue can also cause very serious threats to modern countries' national security. And there are three main features of the non-traditional security threats. First, although the importance of it seems lower than traditional security issue, but the possibility of occurrence is much higher than it. And non-traditional security issue can also cause very serious damage too. Let me give you an example. Most of people will regard nuclear war is a more dangerous things than the climate change, right? Yeah. But if you look the past, in the past few decades, how many people dead in nuclear war? In the past 2 decades, how many people dead in nuclear war? No one, right? No one. But how many people dead in the disaster caused by the climate change? Too many, right? So non-traditional security threats are also very dangerous. And the second feature is most non-traditional security threats cannot be solved by single country's effort. For example, we know the climate change. One of the reasons caused the climate change is people use too many energy like oil, coal, or natural gas, right? And how about Taiwan's government announced that we start from today, all the Taiwanese people stop to use those energy. We go to school, we go to companies by, we do not drive in cars, we ride in horse. Yeah. Will that help to improve the climate change issues?
Maybe.
I don't think so, because Taiwan is too small. And other countries still using a larger amount of those energy, right? Yeah. So international cooperation is necessary. And third, sometimes it seems impossible to confirm the specific source of non-traditional security threats. So that means country cannot deal with it directly. For example, how can we confirm the source of some Ebola virus? We don't know where it forms, so we don't know how to deal with it directly. Okay, although many people regard the drug crime as a domestic affair, but today's drug crime already crossed the boundary and become an international security issue. And tonight, what we're going to talk about including 3 aspects. The threats to the human civilization that are caused by drugs, and the current situation and trends of the international drug crimes, and the effort of the international community in anti-drug crime. So let's talk about how dangerous those drugs are. We know the threats that are caused by drugs is not that obvious, like military conflict or nuclear crisis. But the development of the transportational and chemical technology already make the drug crime today not only cross borders but also become very dangerous. So we can categorize the threats caused by drug crimes into 4 different types: economy, health, social crime, and international terrorism. About the economic threats, I think you should know that some traditional drugs like heroin or cocaine, they are made by plants. What's this? Yeah, poppy. And this? Coca tree. Yeah, that's the raw material of cocaine. And this? Yeah, marijuana. And so, can we plant these plants in Taiwan? No. In fact, I watched a news that some people plant a coca tree in a junior high school in Hsinchu. And there's an old man, they wake up early and do the exercise. And he made this tree and think this is a, can I say in Chinese, 枸杞. Yeah, and he did it. Yeah. He became very high. Yeah. Yeah. But what I want to say, we can plant these plants in Taiwan. But if you watch the international news, you will see that people living in those producing area of drugs, they usually do not think what they are doing, planting these drug plants is a criminal behavior. They think that's just a normal economic activities. They need to do that for their livelihood, just like planting the rice and wheat. Yeah. And after these plants be made into drugs, the price of it will rapidly rise up during the process of selling and transporting. And for example, the heroin made in Southeast Asia only costs $5,000 per kilogram in local. But if you can transport these products into Europe, the price of it will rise up to $300,000 per kilogram. So the enormous profits will promote people to participate in the drug industry very actively, even they know what they're doing is illegal. So how does drug crime damage the national economy? The answer is in three ways: waste financial resources, reduce labor resources, and undermine the normal economic systems. We know the drug crime will obviously increase the public spending. For example, the government needs to spend more money to make and play the commercial to publicize the dangers of drugs to their citizens. And the departments of police and customs, they need to purchase more equipment and hire more employees to detect the drug crime. And court and medical institutions like hospital, they also need to spend more money to deal with more case of the drug crimes and treat drug users. And in addition, we know using drug will cause various derived problems like poverty or abused child. So that means government also need to spend more money on its social welfare policy. In terms of reducing the labor resources, we know the using drug will cause various health problems. I remember in history, in the late period of Qing Dynasty, Chinese people they use a lot of opium drugs. I don't know how to say 鸦片 in English. I'm very sorry. Yeah, just opium. Yeah, opium. Yeah. So I used to watch a movie, and Japanese people just say Chinese people is a sick person of East Asia. Yeah, 东亚病, we know that. Yeah. Yeah. And if you see the statistical data, it shows most of the drug users' age is between 15 to 50 years old. And that's the major part of the national labor resources. So because of these people are using drugs, they usually cannot work as a normal people, and they will further waste the judicial or medical resources of the country. So you can see the negative effect that caused by the drug crime to the national economy. And in terms of undermining the normal economic system, in some countries in those main drug-producing area like Colombia, Mexico, or Afghanistan, the most prosperous economic activities in those countries is drug industry. And many people participate in help those drug cartels to planting drug plants or making drugs or transporting drugs. So that will make other normal business gradually shrink, and the tax income of the governments continues to decrease. So damage the national economy. Here is a statistical data from the United Nations about the Afghanistan agriculture, and you can compare with it. You can see the profits of planting poppy is much higher than planting rice and wheat. So, from the perspective of the economic rationality, I think most of the farmers will tend to plant poppy, right? What will you choose? Of course, this one, right? So here's a short video. It's an interview to a drug cartel in Lebanon, and it can help us to realize the connection between making drugs and the economic activities. Let's take a look. Now, about the health rates, we know drug is bad for the people's health. No matter what kind of drug you are using, cocaine or amphetamine, they will all seriously damage your immune system. And considering some drugs are used by syringing, and so that will also cause the infection of HIV or hepatitis. And criminally, the connection between drugs and crime, including three aspects: the simple drug crime, the derived crime of drug users, and organizational crime. The simple drug crime means the behavior like planting drug plants or making, selling, transporting drugs are already been defined as a criminal crime in most of the countries in the world today. So you can see some countries like Taiwan, mainland China, Philippines, Malaysia, or Indonesia, they even allow to impose death penalty on drug seller. The second type is the derived crime of drug users, and that include two different situations. The first one is crime to obtain money for buying drugs. The feature of the most of the drugs is expensive, highly addictive, and extremely hard to quit. So that means the drug user, they usually need to pay a lot of money for long term to buy, for buying drugs. And unfortunately, we know most of the drug users do not have enough money because they don't have a stable income. So they need to do something, illegal to get the money they need, like robbing, thieving, or sex trade. And the other situation is crimes under the influence of drugs. Most of drugs will damage users' nervous system and cause the symptoms like emotional instability, delusions, irritability, easy to be angry, and the tendency to attack. So, of course, that will cause various criminal behaviors. And the last one is the organizational crime. You can see many criminal organizations have participated in the drug industry for its enormous profits. You can see this situation in many movies. And these organizations are very open to selling drugs to students and young people, and that will make the problem of using drugs continue to deteriorate. And after this organization, they make huge profits from drug selling, they will be more able to engage in other criminal behaviors or threaten the public order. The fourth, the drug problem will also cause the expansion of international terrorism that included two different situations. The first one is drug cartels act like terrorists. That means those people are drug cartels. What they're doing is making drugs and selling it, but sometimes their behavior just looks like terrorists. Let me explain to you. The substantial profits of the drug trade make some drug cartels able to establish their private arms force. And just like the video you just watched, some private arms force of the drug cartels, like Medellin and Cali in South America, and Kunshan in Southeast Asia, their arms force are even larger and stronger than the local country's army. They have various modern weapons. And these drug cartels are willing to use their arms to threaten or kill anyone who try to obstruct their drug business. The other situation is terrorist organizations obtain funds from drug trade. So these people are real terrorists, and they selling drugs just because they need money, they need funds to hire more people join in their organization to do, to launch a terror attack. Making, transporting, and selling drugs are very important ways for many terrorist organizations to obtain the funds they need. And some terrorists said selling drugs to Western countries, to our enemies, can not only get the money we need, but also undermine those countries' national security, public order, and their citizens' health at the same time. So it's very efficiency. I think Afghanistan is a classic example. This country is one of the main producing area of opium drug. In fact, Afghanistan is the world's largest producing area of opium drugs, especially heroin. The products made by this country usually selling to Europe and North America. And Taliban region, have you ever heard of it? Yeah, Taliban, we say that in Chinese, who used to govern Afghanistan in the 1990s. And this regime wants to legalize its domestic drug industry and impose heavy tax of 40% on it. And some experts point out that most of the funds that Taliban regime get from the drug tax are using to support the development of Al-Qaeda. You may have heard that before, which is a very famous terrorist organization led by Bin Laden and launched the 9/11 terror attack. So now let's talk about why drug crime is an international security issue. So there are 4 obvious trends if we make a macro observation on the international drug crime. The first is a stable international supply-demand structure of drugs exists for decades. And the second is there's no change of the main drug-producing areas, and the rapid rise. The third trend is the rapid rise of the designer drugs. Have you heard it before? Designer drugs. In Chinese, we call that 新型毒品. That means some drugs, they are not made by plants, but made by chemicals, like LSD, MDMA, amphetamine, things like that. So, the first one, where is the major consumer market of drugs in the world? China? Or Africa? No. Drug is expensive, so the main consumer market, of course, is those rich countries. So North America and Europe. Yeah. The amount of cocaine in North America accounts for 40% of the international drug market. So the most popular drugs in America and Canada is cocaine. Yeah. And if we include the amount of heroin and designer drugs there, because marijuana in some state in the United States is legal. Yeah. North America is the world's largest drug consumer market today. And Europe is the world's largest consumer market of heroin. The opium drug is much more popular in European countries. And if we include the drug market in Russia, So the scale of the drug market in Europe is very close to North America. So in general, we can say the current drug consumer market are those rich and highly developed countries. And regions like Africa, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia, those regions are relatively backward. They are producing drugs for those rich countries. And you can see the drug industry in those regions already combined with the local economic system. You can see the drug cartels work with people, farmers there, work with officials or politicians there. So this situation will make the drug industry there even harder to be prohibited. So in other words, like I said, the current global drug crimes is the poor countries making their drugs for rich countries to use. And if we compare with the past, you will see the main producing areas of drugs. There's no change. There are 4 states. In fact, some regions are continuous to making drugs like heroin and cocaine. The first one is Golden Triangle. Have you heard that before? I remember a few years before, there was a very famous movie made in Hong Kong. And I don't know how to say that in English, but its Chinese name is Mentu. Have you ever heard? Played by Andy Liu Derhua. No one. Yeah, it is about a story about the Golden Triangle. These are sub-regions in Southeast Asia, and across the borders of Laos, Thailand, and Myanmar, right here. If you look back at history, the guys who established this drug-producing area is related with Taiwan. It's a part of the military troops of Kuomintang government. When it lost the civil war in mainland China, we came to Taiwan. But some military troops stayed there, and they went to the Southeast Asia and established a basement right there. And those people are making and selling drugs to get the money they need to survive. Yeah. And the geographic space of this sub-region is about 200,000 square kilometers, and this is the main producing area of opiate drugs, heroin, in Asia. Okay, the second one is Golden Crescent. This is how do you know crescent? 新月就是弯弯的月亮 ，crescent, yeah, right here. This is sub-regions in the Middle East and across the border of Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. This place is the biggest, the world's largest producing area of opiate drugs. And the products made by this area can supply China's drug market and selling to the European countries. The third one is Silver Triangle. In Chinese, we will say Yinsanqiao, a sub-region in South America. And right here, across the border of Colombia, Ecuador, and part of Peru. And this is the world's largest producing area of cocaine. And the drugs made by this place are usually sold to America and Canada. But recently, drug cartels right in this place, they also try to export their products to some Asian countries. The fourth producing area of drugs is Black Triangle. So that's a sub-region in West Africa, especially the place near the Gulf of Guinea. And here is an important producing area of marijuana, and also the middle transport station for cocaine products from the South America and exported to Europe or Asia country. Now, we know those areas are continuing to producing drugs. right? For decades. So why don't we just arrest those drug cartels and solve the drug problems directly? Why? We know Afghanistan is making drugs. We know Golden Triangle is making drugs. So why don't we just destroy this drug cartel? So there are three reasons that we cannot solve the problems of those drug-producing areas. The first one is the local government, right, in those regions, they are usually lack the capability of governance. Because most of the officials, police, and politicians there were bribed by drug cartels. And the second reason is just you mentioned that people in those regions, they participate in drug industry and to earn money for livelihood. So if you want to prohibit drug industry, you need to consider the issues of jobs for the people. Yeah. And the third reason is the historical experience shows that when the international community try to prohibit the drug industry in one drug-producing areas, other areas will make even more a larger amount of the drugs to meet the demand of international consumer market. So in other words, if we only deal with a single producing area of drugs, it will offer the business opportunity for other areas. The fourth and the last trend of the international drug crime is the rapid rise of the designer drugs. So in recent years, you can see the sales of traditional drugs like cocaine and heroin gradually decreased. And meanwhile, you can see some new designer drugs like amphetamine and MDMA and LSD are very popular in the international drug market. And unlike the sedative effect, do you know what the feeling is after we use the heroin or cocaine? Have you ever heard that about? How do you have that? Yes. How do you know that? Amazing. The traditional drugs like heroin or cocaine, if you use it, those are sedative drugs. So you use it, you will feel so relaxed, and you probably will sleep and feel so good. Yeah. But these new designer drugs are different. If you use MDMA or LSD, what will happen? You will feel very exciting, and you will see some, you will be delusive. So the effect is totally different, but these kind of drugs are also highly addictive. And there are three reasons cause the rapid rise of the designer drugs in the international consumer market. The first one is the convenience of producing and transporting. We know, we just mentioned that most of the traditional drugs like heroin and cocaine are made by plants, coca trees and poppies. So that means the supply of the raw material of these drugs are easily to be affected by some external elements. For example, the climate change or the anti-drug campaign that launched by local government. And more importantly, the producing area of traditional drugs and the main consumer markets is divided, right? The producing areas is in Golden Triangle or Golden Crescent, but the main consumer market is in North America and Europe. So this situation will highly increase the difficulty and the costs of transportation, because the drugs could be confiscated by customs and police at the border. It's very difficult. But you can see designer drugs are made by chemicals. So that means the raw material of it is relatively cheap and stable to supply. And drug cartels can produce those drugs right in the consumer market. So they can avoid the difficulty and risk of transportation. Here is a short video can tell us how difficult to transport the drugs through the customs. Let's take a look. So you can see transportation is always the hardest part for those drug cartels. And the second reason that caused the rapid rise of designer drugs in international market is the convenience of using. Do you guys know how to use heroin or cocaine? Syringe. And that's inconvenient because you cannot do that publicly, right? And
how about powder?
Some people will do that, but usually they still use syringe. Yeah. And that's inconvenience, pain. But how people use the designer drugs like LSD or MDMA? How we use those drugs? Oral, just water and drink that. Or oral. So that's more convenient and more acceptable for young users of drugs. And the third reason is these kind of drugs are much more popular by young people because of two reasons. First is about money. The price of designer drug is much cheaper than cocaine and heroin. So that's much more affordable for the young drug users with limited income. And the second reason is about the effect of the drug. We just mentioned the effect of the traditional drugs, cocaine and heroin, is more kind of like sedative. So if I want to go to the bars or clubs, I'm prepared to hide, and I syringe heroin, then I just relax. I cannot do anything. But the new designer drugs like MDMA, these kind of drugs can make people feel delusive and exciting. So that's more suitable for this entertainment place, for young people's entertainment activities. And at the last, let's talk about the efforts of the international community in anti-drug crime. There are 5 aspects. The first one is decrease the supply of drugs. In the past few years, you can see the United States and some European countries like France, they are continuous to provide a large amount of the military and economic assistance to some countries are facing the serious threat of the drug crime, such as Mexico and Colombia. They are helping these countries to prohibit the drug industry, confront drug cartels, and through providing the economic assistance to encourage local farmers to replace drug plants with some high value and legal plants like coffee tree. And the second is the propaganda and deterrence. Almost every country's government in the world today are continue to spend a lot of money to make a commercial to publicize the dangers of drugs to its citizens. And some countries also punish the behavior of selling and transporting drugs to the drug cartels for deterrence. And the third one is detect drug crime. But some countries are trying to make their policy of detecting drug crime more flexible, which means they allow people to use some soft drug like marijuana limitedly, legally, like Netherlands and Belgium. Other countries, in fact, I used to try the cookie made by marijuana in Czech Republic. That's legal there. It feels no good. Yeah. So why those countries do that? Because if they can allow people to use the soft drug, then that means government can focus the resources to deal with the crime of the hard drug like heroin or cocaine more actively, because this kind of drug is much more dangerous. And fourth is the alternative measures. Some countries will provide the alternative medicines like methadone. Have you ever saw this kind of medicines? In Chinese, we call that 美沙酮. Yeah, it's an alternative medicines for the opium drugs, and which can help those drug users to quit the addiction. And the fifth is the international cooperation. In the past few decades, the United Nations continue to promote the international cooperation of anti-drug affairs and appeal its members to work together on things like making the multilateral anti-drug regulations, sharing the intelligence of drug crime, establishing a judicial extraction system, and cutting the financial flow of the drug cartels. That's a very useful way. Okay, at the latest of today's class, here's a short video of the CAT speech. It can tell us why the drug crime is an international security threat. Let's take a look. This video a little bit too long, but you can find it on YouTube and finish it. And I share this video with you guys because I want you to realize the drug cartels and drug trade is not only a crime, but which is much more complicated than our imagination. It's a very complicated business, international business. Okay, I think we're done tonight.